So did you book that vacation yet? Super Bowl weekend out in the DR? Where you guys going? Somewhere in the Caribbean, right?
We're gonna start with this?
I guess keep January 2025 open, February 2025. Keep that open, because by then Zach Wilson's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
I don't want to talk about it. It was I've never been so devastated in my life, but the game winner was probably the happiest I've been in my life. So what's that about the Lord giving and taking away?
Yeah, I think with football, you go week by week. So you're 1-0.
Can't apologize for being 1-0.
Although I heard that being 1-0 after week 1 is only assholes are 1-0.
Yeah. No, I mean...
0-1 is where you want to be.
Having your quarterback...
Because everybody sleeps on you, you know?
Having your quarterback rupture his Achilles in first 4 plays of his tenure, not ideal, but getting fucking whipped 40-0 by a division rival, that's terrible.
Well, we didn't come in with big expectations, so...
No
Super Bowl expectations.
Sounds like loser talk.
Yeah, no, we know what we are. And it's unfortunate that you guys didn't get a chance to see what you could have been.
Yeah,
but there's always next year.
He'll be back, yeah. I tell you what, me making it through this, like, I think is a positive too. You know? No, I don't think anything can hurt me.
Ooh, you're just testing the football gods. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Soup Podcast. I am Bo Oliver, joined here today with Aaron, the Nerd Soup Monkey, and we are back to talk about the world of movies, specifically some of the movies that we saw at TIFF, and more specifically, the new movie from Hayao Miyazaki, The Boy and the Heron. We'll be doing a spoiler-free review. Obviously, we don't want to spoil the fun for anybody out there. I think it's set for December 9th in North America, and I think worldwide, so that's fun. And we also got a chance to see a couple of good movies, a couple of not so great movies, but that's part of art, right? You put your stuff out there and then people like me and Aaron take a dump on it or prop it up, right? That's the game we play. We are not Rotten Tomatoes critics, so we haven't been paid off, unfortunately.
I would be so pissed by my life's work to create a movie, have a premiere at TIFF, one of the most prestigious festivals in the film industry, and have me not like just take a dump on it.
Yeah. Or imagine Teddy. Like when Teddy used to be more active on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like you spend your life, you have talent, just doesn't come together, and Teddy's dancing on your grave. Yeah. Or it's good and Teddy's dancing on your grave because he's Teddy.
Like I feel like if a Siskel, R.I.P. shits on you, then you're like, all right, well, he knows real. He can, I'll take that more as a learning lesson.
Yeah, it's almost like a fetish. Somebody you respect shitting on you.
Yeah, it's probably actually worse, because me, you could just be like, oh, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. This is high art. This guy's medium art at best.
Well, those guys also, they didn't always hit the mark. Although Roger Ebert was very accurate with his Phantom Menace review. That one holds up greatly. R.I.P. And you can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or here on YouTube. I'm just assuming most of you were listening on YouTube because that's what the stats tell me. And follow us on social medias at NerdSoup, at BoSoup, at NerdSoupMonkey on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. You know what? I can't keep up the whole calling it X because I fucking... Every other day that dickhead does something that pisses me off. Elmo Musty. That's what I'm going to call him. Sorry, Elmo.
Yeah, what did Elmo do?
I don't know. It's just funny to change somebody's name to something that's childish.
Capitalist pig Elmo coming this December.
Oh, I could see Elmo being very condescending when it comes to, like, did you see that CEO who was talking about we need more unemployment?
Yep.
I feel like somebody should AI that as Elmo. That voice talking down to you, it's frightening.
Yeah, it's like the South Park when they did the Mickey Mouse, but he was a huge asshole.
That was actually really funny. Oh, South Park still going strong. Well, what else do I have to plug? Oh, Patreon, if you want to listen to... We got to record some fan question podcasts. We've been slacking on those, but yeah, there's still a lot of good ones up there, and we'll definitely record one soon because we've got a shit ton of questions from our last podcast where we talked about the best movies of the year, so some good questions to answer there.
Yeah, little spoiler alert going forward. I think I would have a completely new list if we did that podcast today.
Completely?
Not completely, but like a good chunk of it would be replaced.
There you go.
Good movies, good films.
Yeah, that could be something that we talk about on the Fan Question podcast, the next one that does go up. And what else? New York Film Festival starts next week, so my list is definitely going to change. Aaron, you were kicked out of the New York Film Association, right? What was the reason?
I think they were just scared to have me there, They didn't want me to come and, tear the whole place down.
It goes back to our
criticism.
Initial point. They
Yeah.
they didn't want you talking about Ferrari.
Yeah, no. I think they just thought I was Teddy.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah. That happens a lot. Some people, I don't know, they'll tweet at me and they'll be like, "Hey, Aaron, why did you say this?" And I'm like, well, I'm not Aaron. I will speak for Aaron if I must, but...
Don't speak for me.
Okay. Well, let's just jump right into The Boy and the Heron. I think that's where we are going to start this podcast off, the new movie from Hayao Miyazaki, his 12th film? I think this is number 12, 11 or 12. Look at me, I'm not even a real fan. This was a great pleasure to be able to watch this a little bit early. When it was announced that it was coming to TIFF, I immediately texted you and I was like, I did not apply for the press pass, but how the fuck can we get me in? And can we get me in? That was weird saying that. And I got in, and it was great. I saw a couple of people who really liked it talk about it feeling like a greatest hits album, where a lot of the things that you've seen in his previous films are also present in this movie as well. I did find it to be, and this makes sense, he's obviously in his 80s now, he's been doing this for a long time, a bit darker, more mature than his other movies, especially when you look at maybe his last 4. Howl's Moving Castle is a favorite of many people's. Ponyo is really a kid's movie, but still brilliant. But you saw the themes becoming a bit darker in The Wind Rises, and I think he's always done a great job of taking our complicated world and simplifying it. We're something in The Wind Rises where it's a man who is working for a fascist government, but still following his dreams, and I think the real world, the nastiness of that era seeps in. And that's also present in The Boy and the Heron. Obviously, it's just little spoilers. It's about a young boy who's yearning to be reunited with his deceased mother. And he finds himself on a typical Miyazaki adventure. Mm-hmm. And that adventure, as I said, there were moments of wonder, awe-inspiring animation, creatures. Just the creativity of this guy has been unbelievable to watch throughout his career. But there is a cloud over this movie where it feels like, even though he says now it's not going to be his last movie, it does kind of feel like goodbye in many ways. So the more I sit with it, the more I like it, and the sadder it makes me feel, because it does feel like a guy reckoning with his own life and his art and what it all means. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was just, I'm getting emotional talking about it. It was, I don't know where I would rank it, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, this one to me felt more, like you said, a little bit more mature, a little bit deeper, and right off the bat, I think with that opening sequence, it sets that tone of it's not going to be the more, and I hate even saying kids movies, because what we perceive to be kids movies and what a kids movie for Miyazaki is just night and day when it comes to quality and just appeal widespread. Even though if it doesn't have to be mature, it doesn't have to be have complicated themes for adults, they can still enjoy it, even if it is a little bit geared towards younger audiences. But yeah, right off the bat, the animation in that sequence was, I don't really recall stylistically him doing anything like that before. More than I do.
Yeah, definitely. That was it was striking to watch. Just seeing the flames on the screen and the destruction. Right. So it really sets that tone right away.
Yeah. So off the bat, it definitely let you know you're into maybe more of a bit of more of an intense experience, but it still has all the trademarks when it comes to his filmmaking, the wholesomeness, the mass appeal when it comes to the things that we all can kind of resonate to. And then you go on this wild adventure, this journey into this, world he's able to create. And yeah, like you said, it's one of those movies where you just kind of get lost in it. And especially when you're at a festival, when you're seeing so many movies a day and you're kind of on the move, on the go forever, even good movies, I can feel myself getting tired about, especially later on in the week. And this one did come a little bit later, or not a little bit later, but it was like right in the middle of everything. And even with all that, being a little tired, maybe a little run down when it came into it, this one I just got sucked right into. And that's kind of when I know like a movie's pretty exceptional, is when all the elements, I'm talking like I'm like in a football field in a blizzard, but like all the elements and surrounding things, you can kind of just forget about that for a minute and just be transfixed on what's on the screen in front of you.
Yeah, and I think in many ways it was sort of meta. And it reminded me of Asteroid City in a way, where it's like a guy talking about what it takes to create art and what it means to be dedicated to this for a lifetime or multiple lifetimes, and what it takes out of you, that in order to create these worlds that are so beautiful, that people have been escaping their own problems by visiting these worlds for years and for decades now. I mean, he's going on 50 years. It takes a lot out of the person who's behind the curtain. Right. It's like Oz. Yeah, the world is wonderful, but he's secluded. He's living alone. So I think there was a great interpretation that I read on Letterboxd from Josh Lewis. I've talked about him a few times on the podcast, where he talks about the way the movie tackles the labor and what it means to be an artist, that things can be ugly, and that's sort of the path that you need to take in order to produce something that's so beautiful, but that the movie can also be interpreted as Miyazaki being disappointed in his son for not being a good director. People are always taking shots at poor Goro, but that's why I love the original title so much, and I understand them wanting to appeal to international audiences with something that's a easier pill to swallow, The Boy and the Heron. But the actual title, How Do You Live, I think that's
such a better title,
because it just relates to so much of what's going on in the movie. He's asking that question on so many different levels. It doesn't only relate to how do you live without my movies, because I thought that was a fun interpretation as well. What are you guys going to do without me? I'm going to leave a big hole here. Mm-hmm. Who is my successor? But it's also how do you live with loss, as we said, with the young boy who's grieving the loss of his mother. But how do you live in a world with so much pain and destruction? And I think that's a question that's been present throughout his work, but it's the most present here. And it just beautifully fits what he's trying to tackle with the ideas and the themes in this movie. That's how I'm always going to think of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be able to think about that title and not get a little choked up because of the multiple meanings it has to the story and to his career overall.
Yeah, and, a great blend of comedy as well. I found it to be...
He's very underrated when it comes to that.
Very funny at times.
The Heron was hilarious.
There's a couple of visual comedic moments that I think really nailed it. It just blends all these different elements so well. So I don't think it's a surprise that this is another great movie from him. You and others of his bigger fans, I don't know where you would rank it so far, but for me it kind of feels like it's par for the course, and it's kind of like, I don't know, when someone like him, when you look at like other prestigious directors, when you're ranking their movies, it's kind of just like, at what point does it become silly to put like comparing great movies after great movies?
Yeah, I saw a tweet a couple days ago that said, I've reached enlightenment, all the Miyazaki movies are the best movies.
Right.
That's kind of where I am. I don't think there's one that I have lower than a 4 on Letterboxd. I recently rewatched Hal. For a while, it was at 3.5. That was my least favorite. I think it still is, but it's a 4 out of 5. And now I'm saying that's it's funny to say that's the worst Miyazaki movie. I think it's in the second tier, but it is sort of ridiculous to compare them at this point, because I lobbed it at 4.5 stars. It's going to be probably in my top 5 of the year. I don't know if it's number 1. Didn't have Donnie Yen as a blind assassin, so
that's true.
that's going to hold back a lot of the movies that come out this year. I did hear he makes a cameo in Zone of Interest, so I'm excited to
Miyazaki.
No, Donnie Yen as a blind assassin. But those are just rumors, so yeah, I'm gonna have to see that one for myself.
Yeah,
when it comes to ranking it, I think if you love his movies, you're going to love this one.
Right.
I imagine a lot of people who grew up with his movies or who discovered them later in life, like I did, will really enjoy this, and they'll notice a lot of the same motifs, a lot of the same iconography that's been present throughout his filmography. But it felt like he was not tooting his own horn, but celebrating the work that goes into making these films, while also his movies have always been a celebration of life in ways that I think are so inspiring, like the way he's always shown older women in a positive light. They're always such a positive presence in the life of these characters, those grandma and grandpa figures. He always shows them with so much humanity and grace. He doesn't punch down. He really props them up.
That's like culturally too, just the difference between us and maybe Eastern Eastern countries and how they view their elders with just so much more respect.
Yeah.
It feels like we kind of lost that out here.
Right, yeah, there's way more of a veneration for what they've gone through. And just more of an understanding of it. And this one felt like...
'Cause I yell at old people all the time on the road.
It's easy to lose patience with them on the road. Why are they driving?
In the grocery aisle, taking their damn time.
But this was very much, and this is putting it very simply, but more of a celebration of the cycle of life. Just because, you know, the old cliche of one door closing and another one opening. Sometimes when a door shuts, other door doesn't open. That's fine. That's the nature of things. You know, things aren't meant to last, but let's celebrate them while we have them. And then sometimes when that door closes and a new one opens, you need to figure out how you're going to walk that path. That it's not going to be the same old thing, but you can find beauty in something different. So the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, it makes me sad for him that he was being this honest with his own life. I think there are a couple of lines that could really apply to the way he's, on record, alienated himself from his own family, from his own children. And you hear about it all the time. They talked about it in Bergman Island, you know, that he had all these children and he was never there for them. It felt like he was laying it all bare. And then he says, I'm going to come back for a couple more, which is hilarious because this really just feels like such a perfect bow on a career.
Well, we talked about it with Scorsese and what he wanted, how he talked about him having all these ideas, but, you know, kind of realizing that time is limited.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if this is still what he wants to do, he still has more stories to tell, then just keep going as long as you can.
Yeah, you've seen it throughout film history, and Tarantino has made the claim that directors, it's not that they get worse, but they become more inconsistent. But I think there are some outliers, the true geniuses, and Scorsese and Miyazaki would definitely apply there. The world continues to open up for them. I don't think that there's any lid on their creativity. And you've heard it, musicians and poets and painters and now filmmakers that find new ways to express themselves artistically, and that's why it is so bittersweet, because it almost feels like, you know, Miyazaki directed his first movie when he was in his mid-30s. It's like, man, imagine if I was 21 with the mind that I have now. It's like you gave up all that time. I obviously wouldn't say no to another Miyazaki movie. It's like Twin Peaks: The Return. I think the ending's perfect. But if David Lynch said, I want to do season 4, I'd be like, fuck yeah. You do what you want, madman. So I'd be interested to see in which direction he goes. I would love for him to do like another Ponyo, where it's something very simple for kids. But that movie, the animation, I mean, it may be his best animated movie just when it comes to the quality of the actual animation. So... But who knows where he's going to go. All I know is that this one was incredibly moving. And like all of his other movies, it inspires me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have it like a 4.5. So I think for both of us, if we did redo those lists today, it would be top 5.
Yeah, definitely. I think that arguably it would probably be 3 or 4 for me. It'd be right up there with Past Lives. I did redo my list. And another movie from TIFF actually made it as well into my top 10. All right, well, that does it for our review of The Boy and the Heron. Before we get into the other movies that we watched at TIFF, we're going to take a quick break and shout out our sponsor for today's episode, Fume.
Well, cold turkey may be great for sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor or going on a darkness retreat with your franchise quarterback. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong, so instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air, and instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. And you can ask Bo how many times he has to tell me to stop playing with something or banging my hands, so I like to fidget, and this thing is fun to play with. It's refreshing. The flavored air is a great alternative, and also the fact that it doesn't use electronics makes it easy. You don't have to worry about charging or anything like that. And it kind of just looks cool. Look at this.
Yeah, no, it does. I like the design. Something about wood.
A nice wood finish.
Yeah.
Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 10,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up your journey pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use code NERDSOUP to save 10% when you get the journey pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code NERDSOUP to save additional 10% on your order today. Head to tryfume.com/nerdsoup and use code NERDSOUP to save an additional 10% off your order today.
But yeah, you want to go move on to some of these other films?
Yeah, sure. I guess should we go with things that we both saw or rattle off our favorites?
You rattle off your favorites and then I'll chime in based on what I've seen.
Well, my favorite of all of them I saw was Zone of Interest.
Okay, let's go with the ones you liked. Let's go four on Letterboxd and up.
That's a 5.
So we'll do the goods. Yeah, 4 and up though. So this is a 5.
So don't start with Zone of Interest.
We'll do good, bad, and ugly. No, start with Zone of. I'm saying just those films
okay.
in general.
Zone of Interest, Holdovers, Dumb Money, and American Fiction. I have Holdovers 4.5, Dumb Money, and American Fiction 4.
Okay, so I saw Dumb Money and American Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Loved them both. Both similar ratings, 3.5 stars. Well, the same rating. Both very funny though.
Yeah, man, it's such a nice change of paces to go from like some of the darker movies and, you know, kind of having some of these downers put on you, not in a bad way, but just topics and themes that they approach. But to see like these type of movies,
it is very refreshing.
Yeah, even though I think American Fiction more so than Dumb Money, you know, it does have a lot to say. It does have a lot of deeper meanings, some themes, but it's presented in a very light way where you can sit back and laugh and have a good time, even though the director came out before our screening and said it's okay to laugh. Like, these things are the way I present it, because it might be a little uncomfortable, but this is the point that's trying to be made here. So have fun with it. And that's what I did with American Fiction, and it was great. I know you talked about Sterling K. Brown, just how you think he's the greatest actor ever, but he was phenomenal. Jeffrey Wright too, just insanely underused, I think, in Hollywood. I'm glad Wes Anderson kind of grabbed him up a little, just so we can see him in more quality movies. But after Westworld, when we saw him go toe-to-toe with Anthony Hopkins and hold his own and excelled in the way he has, I'm surprised he's just not in more things now.
I loved him as Commissioner Gordon. That's something that I totally forgot that he was in while watching American Fiction, because I had the same thoughts. I was like, man, this guy is so good. I would love to see him in more stuff. But I definitely hope that he becomes a consistent character in Wes Anderson's world. But he's great. I mean, nobody plays a professor better than Jeffrey Wright. The dude is just oozing professorial qualities of, being an intellectual, and he fits into this character perfectly, because what the movie is tackling is, how we perceive black art and how we sort of put black artists in a box that they can only tackle certain things because that's what sells. And I think it's a very important movie for people to see, not only because of that, but because of just how smart it is and how it shows all different sides and how it tackles it in a way that's very nuanced. Yeah, I never say that people should go to movies to learn something, but I think that it's informative in a way that unless you're actually talking to people of color, you're not going to really understand this. Because I've heard people say, oh, I'm really tired of movies about slavery, and then a white person will say, well, I've learned a lot about the horrors of slavery from these movies. And it's like, well, that's generational trauma and suffering. Is obviously you can make a really good movie about that subject, but not this many movies. It doesn't only have to be about our suffering and our trauma.
Well, that's what I appreciated about Zone of Interest, and I'll talk about that later, because it approaches that subject in a completely unique way, which I really appreciated. But here it definitely takes shots at white liberalism and how, I guess, especially among the elites, the pat yourself on the back thinking you've done good. Meanwhile, when you dig a little deeper into it, you realize that it is, like you said, kind of putting black artists in a box, or kind of limiting them to, or putting your money into projects that you think about certain subjects that you think is going to sell. And even from Jeffrey Wright's perspective, his characters being aware of this and trying to go the other way, but even some of the things, his misconceptions of what's going on and what he learns throughout the film, I think it creates a pretty vivid picture of the situation as a whole, rather than making it simply about one aspect of it. and kind of digging a little deeper and letting all these things play out in a very comedic way that also hits some very good emotional beats. And it is surrounded by, or at its essence, it kind of is a bit of a family drama as well.
Yeah.
And dealing with his own issues in his own personal life. So
yeah, I love the way they framed his core argument, but they also didn't make him this infallible voice. He is a flawed character. He's got his own shortcomings. And as you said, he's not seeing the full picture as well, even though I think he's got the best idea of how we should move forward with promoting black art and celebrating black artists and giving them opportunities to explore things that white artists have been talking about, or not even giving them the opportunity, but just giving them the recognition. Because one of the best scenes of the movie is when he goes to a bookstore and he finds all of his books under African American fiction. And he tells the person working at the bookstore, like, these books have nothing to do with race. It's not about being black. They're just stories.
Right.
He's like, this one doesn't even have a black character in it. Or I think he says something like that. And he takes all the books and just puts them in the fiction section. It's like when Virgil Abloh passed away, the fashion designer. And when they did the tribute at the Grammys, they put hip-hop fashion designer. Why can't I just be a fashion designer?
Right. Yeah.
Or like Tyler, the Creator, used to complain, I always get called alternative hip-hop music. Why can't this just be hip-hop? Hip-hop's a wide umbrella. And I think that's what they're fighting for in this movie. That's what they're trying to expose. And they do it, for the most part, very successfully. I think the problems with this movie came from the family stuff, where it's not that it felt unnecessary, but it was just kind of, it didn't move me. I think I would have preferred if it was just Jeffrey Wright and his fuck-up brother, played by Sterling K. Brown. Not necessarily a fuck-up, but just a wild card.
Yeah.
He's just a guy doing his own thing. He's successful. He has money, but he's also, he's constantly coked up and doing drugs and banging other dudes. He was a mess.
Yeah.
And I thought that those two characters were enough to provide enough drama to sustain the film throughout all of its comedic moments.
Yeah. And then Dumb Money, like you said, just another funny movie. I got the sense, I read your Letterboxd review, just like how you thought it was going to be a bit gimmicky, just making a movie off of this weird thing that happened a few years back. But I think it really kind of took this kind of weird moment and built a story around it that really kind of speaks for this past 5-year block as a whole. One of like the first movies, I think, from this era that has really embraced like, or focused on meme culture, internet culture, and how that really is just a new way of life here, and how powerful and how, I guess, influential it can be.
Yeah, no, that is a great point, because it is about something that happened in the real world. A guy on the internet voicing his opinion, and then it gains traction, and people realize, hey, if we all come together through the internet, like you said, we can actually drive up this stock and make some money here. And that's not a spoiler. It is something that happened in the real world. But that is a great point, because a lot of movies these days, they're afraid to exist in contemporary society, but they don't, because they don't know how to tackle it. Because phones, people say every Seinfeld problem could have been solved with a cell phone. But this movie shows how new problems arise for certain people in power, I guess in this case, because of that camaraderie that the internet is capable of, that you can talk to millions of people throughout the world by simply logging onto your computer and creating a movement, because that's what this really was, rallying around this one guy, driving up this GameStop stock. And I wasn't aware of the implications that it's had on the financial world.
Oh, yeah.
That a lot of big players no longer want to short these companies because they're afraid of it happening again. That people are going to get wind on this. Oh, all these different firms have shorted Target, so we're all going to invest in Target. I don't own any stock in Target. I'm not trying to push anything.
We should. I mean, it's time to fight back against capitalism. That's kind of what they were showing. The regular guy can make a big difference. And great role.
Until that dickhead from Robin Hood shut it all down.
Yeah. I mean, great Paul Dano role.
Yeah.
It's bad. Dane DeHaan. What a...
Oh, yeah, dude. He's basically his character from Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
just a creepy guy.
A weird one.
Yeah.
He's great at the weird little guys. Between this and Big Short, I still don't know what shorting means. But seeing like Reddit come to life on screen,
Yeah, dude, the memes were so funny, so juvenile, so immature, and I laughed at every single one of them.
Like the older generation is not going to know what's going on during those moments, but I thought it was so fucking funny because they're so recognizable, and like we lived through it, so we kind of know the what's going on and how this all came about. So
yeah, that's why I always make the point that cancel culture, it really does only exist for famous people. Because there are plenty of people with big platforms that can say anything, but they're their own men and women. So you can go on the internet and you can call people slurs. You can say inflammatory things in the context of supporting this movement around buying a stock and driving up a stock. And there's no backlash to it. Like one point in the movie when the subreddit got shut down for inappropriate remarks or whatever it was, and Paul Dano's wife goes, well, that subreddit always has inappropriate shit on it. Why did they shut it down now? It's like, because, they were really starting to fuck with people. So yeah, all that stuff was really, really funny. And that's something that can get annoying, but I don't think it ever did. I thought it was funny throughout. And I was really impressed by how they, Paul Dano's the lead, but they were focusing on obviously the big rich guys, the rich players. All those characters were hilarious and perfectly cast. And also the little guys as well. Anthony Ramos and his role, America Ferrara. They did a good job highlighting all the differences and similarities of those characters, of why they would invest so heavily and trust this guy that they've never met, because they need a break. And I thought that all the performances were hilarious. Every character, every actor had a moment to make you laugh. So it was really impressive when it comes to just the actual script writing and the execution of the movie. Yeah, it was very entertaining from beginning to end. Like I said, I remember when this was happening and it was a big deal over those couple of days, but I didn't fully grasp the scope of it. When it started, when it peaked. And I remember how it was shut down because it was so controversial. So yeah, it takes you on this little contemporary adventure, and it's a blast.
I'm just going to buy a bunch of GameStop stock, and hopefully this gets reignited when the movie comes out.
Yeah, I need to follow Keith Gill. I need to follow that motherfucker.
On the Holdovers, that was 4.5. I think my number 3 movie of the festival. I think that's one where when you watch the trailer, like you kind of get like the vibe and what's going to go on, but
that screenshot of Paul Giamatti makes it, that happens in the movie, right?
Yeah. But I think it's a little bit more than that, because I think the focus on the characters and the way they're able to develop throughout the movie just made it this real heartwarming, funny story that I think a lot of people can attach themselves to these characters and kind of see where they're coming from, but learn to, I guess, grow and become better versions of themselves. So it's definitely very wholesome, very funny. Paul Giamatti is not underrated as a name, but underrated as like he should be a respected and considered a lead actor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's that talented.
I feel like Philip Seymour Hoffman in a way, because like I feel like most people like knew him from stuff like Along Came Polly, right? Fucking hilarious, but obviously when you view his work as a whole, you're kind of... I remember when I was just first getting into like watching stuff and realizing what he's in, that he was more than that. I was like, holy shit, he's like world class.
Yeah, right.
And Paul
R.I.P.
Yeah. Paul Giamatti is world class. I mean, we've known this since like John Adams, but I feel like in terms of where he should be considered as an actor, it should be close, like pretty up there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the first Paul Giamatti performance I saw where I was like, I absolutely love this guy. But
same thing for me. It was like he's the blue guy because Frankie Muniz dyed his pool blue.
No, he is terrific, and this is a character that he's played before in other movies, and it did remind me a little bit of Win-Win. The movie that our friend Joe was in, where it's similar character where he's taking on this fatherly role for somebody who doesn't necessarily think that they need a mentor, who's a little troubled, doesn't have family. That's the perfect role for him. And he is someone who is just... he's a delight to watch on screen. I think he's very underutilized. And it looks like he is... People have been shitting on a lot of people talking about award season during the festivals. I don't give a fuck. It looks like he's going to build some momentum here. Because as good as Cillian Murphy was, I still think he's the deserved winner. What I think doesn't matter. It's wide open for Best Actor. There's no consensus like
think he's got a shot, man.
And who are the other guys that they're teasing? They're Bradley Cooper.
Mm-hmm. It seems like Maestro is going to be one of those years where I can see it coming out and like most audiences not vibing with it, but it just wins every award.
That's for older people,
mm-hmm.
older film fans. That's not for film Twitter.
Well, I feel like Alexander Payne historically too, gets nominations. I don't know if he's won, but I feel like his movies always end up being around like well received, but nothing to the extent of like being deserving of winning the big prize.
Right.
And I feel like this is going to be the case for a lot of people. I for one really enjoyed it. I hope it gets some recognition, but I think you can't watch this movie, I don't think, and hate it. I don't think there's really much to hate here. I think there's be varying levels of enjoyment. For me, I just thought it was just a very enjoyable experience, and I recommend it when it comes out.
Yeah, except for downsizing is really not that bad.
Well,
but the emotional manipulative stuff is usually hit or miss for me, but for the most part, for the Alexander Payne movies that I have seen, they've really worked. Like the first performance I ever saw Hong Chow give was in Sideways. And same thing, very emotional, made me cry like 4 or 5 fucking times, and I usually hate stories like that, but I loved it. So when you can execute a feel-good story in a way that doesn't feel overly sentimental and that it's purposely trying to emotionally manipulate you, when it can just show you something real, those stories can be very effective, even for somebody like me who often dismisses them. But even from seeing the trailer, it's a story that we've seen before. So the fact that it's getting all this critical acclaim makes me believe that there is something real about this story. There's something a little bit different in the way that it's executed.
Well, I just think that in the settings and the characters are just so kind of well developed and fleshed out that it creates, there's a sense of familiarity, but sometimes that's not always a bad thing.
No, it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about finding new ways to push it. I think Pusha T said that. Didn't reinvent the wheel, just a better design.
So yeah, and then like I mentioned before, Zone of Interest. This was the first movie I saw, and it's held up as, that's the second time that's happened actually, right? It's 2 years ago. Drive My Car was the first, and that ended up being my number one throughout the year. I tell you what.
That was a great first movie to watch at TIFF, man.
Yeah. Especially getting the 3-hour movie out of the way right away.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to top Oppenheimer for me. I'll definitely got to sit on it a little, but it's my, I think, clear number 2. Just a deeply unsettling film, disturbing, but in a way that I think is not what we're used to seeing, especially when it comes to Holocaust concentration camp type movies. And I think, like you said earlier, with movies about slavery being very prominent when we talk about the black stories being told, or focusing on the violence and the brutality of it all, which obviously both the Holocaust and slavery truly horrific and were very brutal, but the way that Glazer approaches this one in a more mundane point of view, it was made it even more disturbing than a lot of kind of like the torture porn that we see. Because I think at this point too, it kind of, the event speaks for itself, and when you can just shift the focus to this family living right next door to Auschwitz and have that in the background and knowing what's going on, but not necessarily seeing it, and just how this family can just go about their day to day living what looks like the American dream, perfect family life, is, I think that's what truly is horrifying. And talking to people who also saw it, I mean, we definitely had the same kind of reaction, just how the true horror is how evil can just live in plain sight. And you just can't see it.
Evil does not exist.
That's another movie I saw, but not as good as this one.
The stories about the Holocaust, the stories about fascism, they're always focusing on the dudes in uniforms.
Right. Well, I've never seen a movie, usually concentration camps, whether it be set in the camp itself or maybe in the ghettos, or there's always like a graininess to it. This was just so vivid and beautiful and bright for what they showed on screen. And again, that contrast of what you see and what is being shown to you versus what's in the backyard just creates this atmosphere that is unlike anything I think I've really seen, especially when it comes to movies taking place during this time.
Yeah, and that's always the issue with fascism. It's not the people who support it, it's the people who ignore it that are able to continue their lives because it doesn't impact them, because their normalcy is fine. It's other people that are being ripped away from their homes, lives being destroyed, people being murdered indiscriminately.
Yeah, and it also speaks to the, I guess, the acceptance or kind of, yeah, I guess how you can just accept these things or it becomes an afterthought, especially as time goes on. Yeah, there's definitely a lot there to get into, and I kind of, it's just something you really need to really experience and go in and just be in the moment when you're watching it. But
yeah, you hear about it and you're like, what's the catch? Because on the surface it seems like, yeah, no, that can definitely be disturbing, but it like you said, it feels like something you need to experience to truly understand what he's going for. And first movie in 10 years, I'm so excited for it because I love Under the Skin and a couple of other movies that he's done. Sexy Beast, highly recommend checking that one out. So I think I'm going to watch this at the New York Film Festival, so I can't wait for this.
Yeah.
Every critic that I follow that's seen it on Letterboxd, normally these people have different tastes, and so far no one's given it under 4. Really excited for that. And those were all your 4 stars, right?
Yeah, top tier.
Yeah, the only I think the only other one that I really liked. Did you see The Indesirables?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you catch Perfect Days?
No.
Okay, so those were the 2 that I gave. Of course, The Boy and the Heron was at 4.5, but Perfect Days, Wim Wenders, that was the first movie that I actually watched, and it's quite literally a movie about a guy who cleans toilets in Tokyo. So after the pandemic, apparently after the lockdown, the government of Tokyo decided to build these public restrooms as a thank you to the people who stayed in their houses. So high-end restrooms, they've got heated toilet seats, bidets, they're kept spotless. And that's another part of, Japanese culture that I wish that we would take from them is the cleanliness, the camaraderie of keeping things clean so that everybody can enjoy them. And that's what this movie is about, starring Koji Yakusho, about a man who's very content with his life of cleaning toilets. He lives every day in the now with the same routine over and over again. After he went through his routine twice, I thought, they don't have the balls to send him on that routine again. They sent him on that routine like another 3 or 4 times. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is, it was like ASMR because you just get so lost in these moments with him and you begin to smile at things that normally wouldn't make you smile. But it's because he's so happy that when a slight change in his routine happens, he gets so tickled by it. And it's easier said than done living in the now. But this made me really want to try it out because when you see how very zen existence, and as I said, you smile with him, he laughs at something that's maybe not necessarily funny, but it's because he's enjoying it so much. And then you start to learn more about his character, learn about the character's past. But there are moments on screen when you're watching this guy and you're like, they shot it in 15 days and you're wondering how the fuck did he bring so much raw emotion to these scenes, to these moments. And it seems like something that could get repetitive, but there are some truly emotional moments that just stuck with me after watching it. And it looks beautiful. Like I said, the toilets really took my breath away, dude. Some of them were awesome.
Eat off that thing.
No, you really could, dude. And Wim Wenders was there. He walked out, got a huge ovation, and he talked about how he was approached by movie producers from Japan saying, hey, we would love to do like maybe a set of photographs or a mini documentary about these toilets. Mm-hmm. Would you consider this? And he took the trip to Tokyo. He fell in love with the toilets and said, no, this needs to be a feature film. And he felt like, in his own words, that fiction is a great way of capturing reality. And that's a movie that's going to be on my top 10, at least for now. We'll see if it gets pushed out. But an incredible soundtrack. Because the dude's got a cassette tape in his van, and he listens to all the oldies. So he was cruising, dude. Velvet Underground, Nina Simone. So he had some hits. And what's the other 4-star movie?
No, when I go to a public restroom and the toilet's clean, it's the happiest. It's like the best feeling of all time.
Bro, not only was he was like folding the toilet paper, like it had a little cone tip to it. Like both of the toilet papers, they were like evenly lined up. Little presentation. It was a wonderful movie. He finds like a tic-tac-toe game that somebody's playing by themselves, and he draws an X, and he comes back the next day, and the other person drew a circle, and he's like so delighted by it. And as the movie goes on, he continues that game day to day to day. So a movie that was made for me, man. If you love slow cinema, if you love just people doing things and enjoying them, this is definitely for you. And wonderfully directed. Tokyo has maybe never looked more beautiful. The visuals of this movie really stuck with me. And the other 4-star movie that I watched was The Indesirables, which is a French movie. I can't say the director's name, but many people may have seen his 2019 movie, Les Mis. Obviously not the actual Les Mis. It takes that title, and it's a cop story. So apparently this director, I haven't seen that movie, but it looks like similar issues are being tackled in both films. This one specifically, The Indesirables, is tackling gentrification in a French suburb. It would be cliche to call it explosive, but that's exactly what it was. It was intense, funny. There's a lot of humanity to the story that he's telling. I thought all the cast, the characters you're supposed to love, you support them to the very end. The characters you're supposed to hate, you absolutely despise them. The actor who played basically the main antagonist walked out, and he got some booze, some ironic booze, like not genuine. But it was great. It was gripping from beginning to end. The very first scene kind of just throws you into what this movie is going to be and how the problem of gentrification, because people don't actually want to do what needs to be done to solve it, can feel like a dead-end issue. And maybe that's not necessarily the case, but you can see how people become frustrated and hopeless because of the attitude towards this issue, that it can't be solved. And I got a huge ovation when the director and the cast came out. I do wonder how much of an international audience this is going to get. It wasn't on their short list for Best International Feature, so that's unfortunate. It looks like they're really going to ride with Anatomy of a Fall. Did you get to see that? You didn't get into a screening for that, right?
No, it was too early the day I got there, and then although Publix were sold out all week, it's a shame because that was one of the ones I was looking forward to going in. But yeah, I do think especially Toronto does just a great job of showcasing all these international movies that you kind of see, and then some of them you just never really hear about again unless they're nominated for any award, because, a 4-star movie from France or Japan, that's not really going to get a wide star American release unless it's one of the ones being prompted as a potential international feature.
Yeah, no, it's really unfortunate when you think of it that way. I'm constantly thinking about the 3-star, 3.5-star movies that I'm never going to watch.
But also, even, I think with streaming now, a lot of them are more available, but they're never promoted. You'll never know it, and you'll never hear about them. So
right.
You really got to seek them out and try to, find the good ones. It's a lot of, I think I just saw something about Godland being nominated for,
yeah, that's their submission, right?
Yeah.
Iceland?
But that's a movie that I saw last year at TIFF. And this is the first thing I've heard about it since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely sounds I wonder how does that work with the submissions for this festival? Does it go by country, or?
I'm not entirely sure.
I wonder if there's another French movie.
I know there's a lot of movies that try to get into the festival and are denied. Movies that go on to other festivals and are critically acclaimed. So, yeah, I'm not too familiar with that process, but I know it comes down to them watching the movie and deciding whether or not it's good.
No, but I did hear a lot of good things about that one, so.
Oh, yeah, that was really terrific, dude. Like I said, I was impressed by, the issue at hand is very serious, and it's an issue that spreads far beyond the borders of France. We see it here in New York, the way that the borough of Brooklyn has changed in the last 20 years or so. But it really puts a face to that issue.
What show was that with Tracy Morgan?
What the hell happened to Brooklyn? Yeah, The Last OG. But also just very, very funny. Reminded me of Tarantino in a way, where you're laughing at things that despicable characters say because you can't believe they're being that honest about how evil their intentions actually are. And like I said, the dude who plays the lead actress, this was actually her first leading role in a feature film, Anta Diao. She was fantastic, but the standout was the dude who played, so the beginning of the movie, the mayor dies and there's an interim mayor. He's just a pediatrician. He's got this really romantic idea of politics and how he's going to improve the town that he's now mayor of. And within 5 minutes, he becomes a fascist. He was played by Alexis
Texas.
Manenti.
Yeah.
Alexis Texas. Imagine that. He had this smug look on his face, these the perked lips that people do when they're just so arrogant and so confident in themselves and their own ideas that to us sound awful. But like I said, because he's behind closed doors, because he's talking to his confidants and they're all sort of in alignment, playing that political game, you just wanted so badly for somebody to take this guy by the neck and just throw him into a dumpster. And then when he tries to get up, you slam it on his head again. He was the perfect political prick. And we've got a lot of those these days. It seems like everybody's just trying to out-asshole each other in order to build their own profile. So I think he captured that modern political ambition perfectly. And I also got to see the first episode of Lulu Wang's upcoming show, Expats. So actually, no, it wasn't the first episode. She decided to show us episode 5. So it's a story about expatriates living in Hong Kong and also migrant workers. So it focuses on essentially the haves and the have-nots and the drama and the way that their lives intersect. So it's a 6-episode miniseries. She showed us episode 5. She felt like it could work as a feature film without any context. And she was right, because you get immediately absorbed into the story, into the lives of the migrant workers. It begins on their one day off out of the week on a Sunday, and they're all hanging out, having a good time, doing an a cappella version of Katy Perry's Roar. And I said on my Letterboxd review, I was like, is Roar the greatest song of the 21st century? It may be. And then it also focuses on the expatriates, the Americans or the other foreigners that come over to Hong Kong to escape their own problems back home, and they get to start anew, but then new problems arise because no matter where you go, people are people. And it's starring Nicole Kidman. And, you know, what can you say about Nicole Kidman? She's terrific in everything she does. And I'm really excited to see this. I think she said it's going to drop sometime in 2024 on Amazon. But yeah, I can't wait, because this one ends on a cliffhanger where a lot of characters are in positions where they have to go left or right. They're at the fork in the road. And I'm like, damn, you're going to cut it off right here? I didn't even have the context for the first 4 episodes, and I was invested. So that was pretty brilliant.
No, it definitely sounds interesting, especially like you said, just throwing a middle of the season episode, but still having it work in that kind of way. That's pretty ballsy too, for that to be the first experience, because if, you know, she might think that, but if the audience doesn't and tells everyone your show kind of stinks and it doesn't really make sense because you don't have any context to what's going on, then, you know, it could be dead on arrival. But to have the confidence to do that move and to have it work like that sounds promising. I have a couple 3.5s here. You saw Mother Couch. We saw that in the same theater.
Yeah, I gave that 3, which is a movie I liked. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I think it's, especially as a debut feature, Nicholas Larson showed a lot of promise.
No, there were definitely moments where it felt like it was being directed by somebody who's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, and
then other moments where it's like, okay, he's got some things to figure out here, some rough patches maybe he needs to smooth over.
Yeah, and there's the concept of it, a family going to a furniture store and the mom won't get off the couch. It's ridiculous in nature, but it kind of, as it goes on, progresses in unconventional ways, and, you know, a bit surrealistic at times, a little bit dreamlike in its portrayal of certain events, but, you know, it's definitely touches on a lot of things, past traumas, or trying to kind of confront your past in a lot of ways. And yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I think people who kind of like these types of movies will gravitate towards it. Ewan McGregor gives really just, it's hard to say like one of his better performances, but I think it's definitely up there.
Oh no,
I've
yeah,
seen.
I definitely think so. It reminded me a lot of Beau is Afraid, honestly.
Yeah,
similar themes, and a dude whose life is kind of coming apart a bit. He's trying to keep things all together. He's trying to juggle a lot of things, and it's weighing on him.
I think sometimes when movies get as, absurd as this one in terms of its presentation, it's like I kind of like playing in my head, like, is this actually happening? Is this all in someone's head? Is this or is this just what this is in this world? Like, that's just how it plays out, and there really is no answer to it. So I kind of like movies that kind of present everything in that manner, where it's just not your typical regular setting and like your standard presentation of a narrative. So you definitely you're allowed to take a little bit of chances, a little bit of risks, kind of delve into your creative bag and kind of show things in a way that's a bit unconventional. And I think as a first-time director for a feature, those things can come off as maybe trying too hard or maybe trying to be a little pretentious, a little smarter than the audience here. But when it's done in a way that's well executed, it kind of, I think it takes the viewer on an interesting journey that kind of sucks you into it at times. But yeah, it's like you see potential there, maybe for a little seasoning, a little bit tidying up on a certain things. It could be one of those movies we look back on. And I think you said this as well. Like, oh, like I can see how, or I can see why he's considered to be one of the better directors now. Or
yeah.
You could tell from this movie that he had so much potential, and now it's being lived up to.
Yeah, no, it looked great, and the directing for the most part was really, really solid. So it looked and felt like an actual movie. It wasn't amateurish in any such way. I think it just has, it's got some problems that you have with some movies. Not every movie is going to be great. Not every movie is going to be awful. So I was kind of in the middle about it, but for the most part, I thought it was, it's worth a watch, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think people will... people who like these movies that are a bit dreamy, bit more abstract, they're definitely going to find something more in the experience of watching this than somebody who doesn't like that. So, and it seems like these days there are a lot of film fans who are willing to be challenged to meet films on their own wavelengths and see what they get out of it. Yeah,
I feel like it could be selection bias, right? Especially when you look at a film like, I'm thinking of Ending Things. That's fairly well received by everyone who's seen it, but I don't think anyone in a general audience really seek that one out.
Right.
So that could be the case here, where this is sought out by people who enjoy these types of movies or people who are generally interested in film and things of that nature. So
yeah, I wonder if this has a distributor. It'd be interesting to see. But I thought Ellen Burstyn was maybe better than Ewan McGregor if we want to go like performance for performance, because she was so goddamn mean and funny in this movie, and it felt like a child now having to take care of their parent, and that parent acting like a child. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, it's time to go.
Yeah,
no, I'm just gonna sit here. Oh, by the way, I hate your haircut. Just firing off random mean things that I was like, oh, God, I've been around grandparents like this or parents like this who just no filter.
Even McGregor's, like, he's very sympathetic and just how his experiences and how he's willing to still, like, take on that role more so than his siblings and be more, I guess.
Why does Laura Flynn Boyle look like young Ellen Burstyn?
Good casting.
That was great casting. Yeah, they really...
Well, I like Ewan McGregor in these. There's a movie last year, Ray and Raymond, where he plays the brother of Ethan Hawke, and like it's kind of the same, because Rhys Ifans is in this movie, and it's kind of the same dynamic where the brother's a little bit more outgoing and he's a little bit more of a reserved character. I think he fits into that role so well. Even in a little bit of, what's the movie? Dr. Sleep?
Yeah.
I think he's found like
good movie.
Yeah.
And he's also very good as the villain in Birds of Prey when he has to be an asshole.
But like he's kind of slipped into these like kind of reserved kind of characters, and I think he's able to embody that pretty well.
Yeah.
My other 3.5 is Evil Does Not Exist. Talked about Drive My Car earlier. Ryosuke Hamaguchi. Drive My Car was my favorite movie of that year. So I was very much anticipating this one. I didn't like this one as much. I still enjoyed it, but a directorial perspective, like it is just a well-made movie. In terms of bringing you into this beautiful environment and kind of telling a story with long takes and kind of a slow burn in the beginning, but really using visuals to kind of set up a story rather than mostly dialogue. It really is about, at its essence, I guess, just nature and how the people who rely on it, how they view it versus outsiders. Yeah, nothing new, but I think the way he's able to paint that picture using these kind of long, beautiful shots of the landscape, really sucking you in the beginning, was very well done. It is a bit, like I said, a bit of a slow burn that I don't think develops in a way that pays off. There are moments of, I think, brilliance, but I don't want to get too much into it. The ending is very confusing. There's a lot you could take away. I was talking with people after it, just trying to maybe piece together, oh, maybe it was this, maybe he was saying that, maybe this is what it means, maybe it means nothing, but it kind of just happens, and it's a little bit, a little bit of I don't want to say jarring, but it's just definitely leaves you thinking. So, in that respect, I think that may divide some viewers, but overall, I think it's very solid. And like I said, the way he was able to piece together this movie from a directing standpoint, I mean, we've known he's an outstanding filmmaker, and I think at the very least, you're going to get a very well put together movie.
Yeah, I saw one review of it that made me really excited to see it, because I know the basic premise is like, people who live in this area that it may be compromised by local government, something like that. That the title "Evil Does Not Exist" is because everyone's doing their job, and I thought that was an interesting way to look at this idea that, going through the motions, like just because you have a job and there's also problems, doing your job isn't necessarily fixing those problems. You're kind of just treading water.
Yeah, and the characters we're introduced to from, I guess, the perspective of the people who inhabit the land versus the outsiders coming in. I think the way he introduces them and develops them, I think, you get different perspectives on where everyone's kind of coming from. But yeah, not one of my favorite movies of the festival, but I think certainly very solid.
Well, I'll go over, since you've been talking, give you a little breather here, and I'll go over some of the movies that I didn't love at TIFF. I didn't see anything that was truly awful.
You rarely do, unless it's something experimental, because they do a pretty good job of.
Well, apparently, I don't know if this played at TIFF, but the Pool Man, the new Chris Pine movie, apparently it's the worst movie ever created. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if it played at TIFF. Maybe it just played at Venice. But yeah, it's getting terrible reviews. But I unfortunately, the movie that I enjoyed the least was a Scarlett Johansson movie, directed by Kristen Scott Thomas, her directorial debut. It's semi-autobiographical, so it's about three daughters who grew up with two dads who were both killed in action. So they're all coming together because their mom is remarrying for a third time. So it's a family drama where they rehash all the issues and the problems that they have with each other and all the things that they love about each other. So it's messy when family gets reunited, especially when they're all grown up as adults and in many ways are still children. But it was just, it was a mess of a movie. I don't think that it fulfilled any of the ideas that it was trying to execute. Scarlett Johansson's accent was kind of hilarious. It was like a Charles Dickens character. She's like, blimey, and bugger that. She actually says bugger that. When she, somebody suggested something, she said, no, bugger that. It was just so funny. None of the characters, everything just gets resolved in the end. It's got this big, typical emotional resolution to, what each individual character is dealing with, which is never clear. So yeah, it was just a misfire. And the old adage, everybody's got a story inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's where it should stay.
Ouch.
Sorry, Kristen Scott Thomas. Yeah, it's also starring Sienna Miller, Emily Beecham. She had the best character. And what else didn't I love? Oh, a movie, The Reeds. This was a Turkish movie directed by a former photographer. I guess he still is a photographer. But watching it, you can definitely tell that this was a man who got his start in photography because it looks stunning. There's just a series of picturesque shots of the countryside in the foothills of Anatolia. Stunning, beautiful. But that's really mostly the experience you get out of this movie, is that it looks like a series of photographs There were so many dramatic moments that were just undercut by another beautiful landscape shot. And wow, look at this part of Anatolia. Isn't it so beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Just too slow for its own good, too moody for its own good. It's telling the story about a farmer who's being pushed around by local government and local gangs and people in his village. And he's just trying to stake his claim. Yeah, like I said, it was a slow burn. It's only 2 hours, and it felt like I was in that theater forever. It was the only movie where I was just...
I'll say right now, Reptile, it's my least favorite movie. It was...
That was Benicio del Toro, right?
Yeah, 2 hours, 15 minutes. I felt like I was in there for the whole night.
You know what? That normally doesn't happen with us, because if a movie just comes out and it's not getting great reviews, we're probably not going to see it in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the times I'm seeing a movie in theaters, it's so bad that it's good, so it's still entertaining, sort of thing. Like, I'm trying to think recently what type of movie I saw like that. But yeah, sometimes in these festivals, man, you get stuck with these films where it's like, there's nothing going on here, please.
Yeah.
I need to get to my next screening.
It's like, especially with like a murder happened, who did it? Like, what really happened here? Let's follow the detectives and try to get down to the bottom of this. If you can't create like a thrilling atmosphere and like some suspense, they can just drag on, man. And I mean, look at a movie like Seven, and it's unfair to compare it to one of the best movies of all time, especially within that genre, but just the urgency Fincher is able to create in the situation, or even look at someone like a Villeneuve, what he's able to do with that type of that genre. It's just a different level, and here it's just so bland at times and just takes forever, and you feel like you're in there forever. SVU, I'd rather watch 3 episodes of that than 2 hours of this movie. And it's not like god awful. There's still some intriguing points, and I think there is some intrigue there. And when it all comes together, it is kind of satisfying to an extent, but just the process to get to those moments were just a bit boring at times. And there's a lot of twists and turns, and then you get a little confusing. Reptile coming to Netflix, so at least you don't have to go to a theater to watch it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I forget what was the biggest acquisition of TIFF. It was just announced. Oh, Anna Kendrick's Woman of the Hour.
Yeah, I saw
which
that.
Is something else you saw, right? Yeah.
Her debut. It was sad to see her not there. Even though maybe she could have, some loopholes and whatnot, because she can go there as a director, not an act, but she chose.
Yeah, because technically Taika did act in his film, right?
So,
he was there.
Yeah, that was a solid debut, actually. I found that to be pretty enjoyable and definitely a solid debut. It's a very interesting story. It's a true story about like a serial killer who's on a dating game show. All the cliches of the charismatic,
brand new car.
But the charismatic, I was like, oh, how can someone like this, be able to
it's like when they find out that Jimmy Fallon's a dickhead.
Yeah.
Or that weird, creepy guy in England.
Jack the Ripper?
No, he was like a public figure, public TV guy, like Britain's sweetheart. And he looks like the creepiest guy ever. Turns out he was a serial rapist. Oh. And it's like, wow, looking at him, you definitely couldn't have told that.
Yeah. But Daniel Zavato plays the psychopath here, and he gives a really good performance. I'm not really too familiar he's been in some good movies, Don't Breathe, Lady Bird. I guess I just didn't really recognize him in those movies, but he gives a great performance because he does a great job of kind of slipping into that role where he's very eerily creepy, but you can kind of see some of that charisma and charm that he's able to put off and trick people with. And Anna Kendrick's good in her role. I think she's always been a very likable presence on screen. So, there are moments where I feel like she's, having fun as a director, being able to, especially in a game show setting, kind of highlight some of the absurdities of like what it is to be in a game show. And obviously while capturing the horrific elements of, this guy and what he does. So it's definitely good, very suspenseful. I think the way it's constructed is a little bit off and confusing at times. So I think she has some work to do when it comes to that. But as far as her as a director, I think it's a very solid debut.
Was it funnier than Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers?
What's that?
The game show where two families compete by answering questions from the Bible?
No. Is that Gemstones?
Yeah.
What season is that? I don't think I saw.
3.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to that yet.
Season 3 just finished. His whole bit throughout the season is he wants them to produce a show called Baby Billy's Bible Bunkers. Baby Billy's Bible Bunkers. Yeah, I'm excited to see that coming to Netflix. So like you said, I won't even have to go to a theater. I'm part of the problem. The last movie I'd like to highlight here before we get to your last couple is a movie, Kill, that came out of India. I was really excited when I saw this. It wasn't really under the spotlight when it came to TIFF premieres. One click and I saw the premise that it was about 2 military guys facing off against 40 mercenaries on a moving train. I was like, sign me the fuck up. I thought it was a fantastic movie. It was such a good, I saw it, I wish I would have seen it at midnight because it's got those like late night,
right?
Goofy movie with a lot of blood and just constant fighting, and the characters have absolutely no depth to them whatsoever. It's just a fucking slugfest for about 2 hours. And a lot of people have said it's The Raid on a train. The Raid is still better. Still the superior action movie, but this was really good, really entertaining. It's definitely a movie I would encourage people who love action movies to seek out. And awesome title card, one of the most badass take your dick out and put it on the table title cards. I was shocked.
I love a great title card.
Yeah, no, there's nothing quite like it. I think the 2 best of the year would be Kill and Evil Dead Rise. It wasn't so much the placement, but it was just the visual of it, and it blended so well into the prologue of the film. That one was very memorable. But yeah, this was awesome. So a lot of these movies end up coming out in theaters, so we'll see if it gets that same sort of international release. I just saw
India movie.
Yeah, I just saw one last night, not at TIFF. Jawan. That one was incredible. That may be one of my favorite movies of the year. So that's in theaters now. So I'd also encourage people to go see that one. Starring an actor from India who's like their Tom Hanks, 57 years old. I was tweeting about it. Decides he wants to become an action star. He's never done action. Dude's fucking ripped. Looks incredible for his age.
Some of these Bollywood actors are fucking insane. Dude.
Yeah, they're shredded. And then it's got like 3 or 4 dance numbers. It was actually the first time I watched an Indian movie where they referenced all the dance numbers, where like an emotional moment happens and the villain goes, "Please don't break out into a song." And I was like, oh, that's the first time I've seen a character acknowledge that they always do that. They're just so far ahead of everybody. I just need to really dedicate some time to watching more Bollywood and more Indian movies in general, because the way they're doing it, man, it's like I said, it feels fresh. It feels new. It feels like Hollywood still exists over there for their version of Hollywood. Like they've got these mega stars and they treat them with so much respect and reverence, and it's just a celebration of what you can do on film. There's absolutely no rules.
No limitations. Doesn't have to be set in a certain way. It's not like, I don't want to say it's like they don't have, because like, oh, they don't care. That makes it sound negative, but I feel like they don't care in a good way.
Yeah,
where it's
right. Yeah, when it comes to action movies, it's like, why wouldn't you make it like this? It's supposed to be fun. Wherever it feels like everywhere else in the world is obsessed with realism, and grittiness.
Just have fun with it, right?
Yeah, no, let's just fucking do a little song and dance about how, I met the love of my life 5 minutes ago for the first time. And now it's like I could never imagine a world without her. How can we express that? Through song and dance. No songs and dances in Kill, though. So,
anything else?
No, that does it for me for TIFF. Yeah, like I said, I didn't apply for the press pass, so there were some movies that, unfortunately, I did not get a chance to see, but it's still great for the public. Although I do have some complaints. They need to clean up the Ticketmaster bullshit, because scalpers screwed so many people out of going to see movies. And I understand it's a mad rush. You need to get those first come, first served, but this idea that people are using bots to gobble up all these tickets and then reselling them for hundreds of dollars is ridiculous. It's supposed to be a celebration of film, open to the public. You saw it, I saw it. There were so many empty seats at a lot of these public screenings. And I imagine it's because scalpers weren't able to find people to buy those tickets for those absurd prices. So they need to clear that up.
Yeah.
And also, people in the crowds at TIFF, get off your fucking cell phone.
Yeah. No, it's...
Just people, I can understand it's going to happen when I go to my local theater. It still frustrates me. But at a film festival, scrolling shit, like, come on, man. But that's really all I have to say.
Yeah, from the press side, it's annoying too. There has to be a better system to realize what's available and what's not, because they'll show events are available and they're not. So you're on your phone refreshing and missing out on other things. So
Yeah.
But for the most part, it is, I think, like everything, good enough in terms of the system to be able to see what you can. Obviously, you're never going to be able to see everything that you want. So, but
And they do a great presenting and decking out the downtown.
Oh yeah, it's one of the more.
It's very immersive.
From in New York, comparing the two, I mean, it's New York City. So much other shit going on.
New York would never do that.
No one cares really about the festival. Toronto, like, it is, a celebration, and everyone's really into it. The streets are shut down. The crowds are building up from the public. The access to the public, I think it's the largest public film festival. So, might not be perfect in that sense, but, it really is for, not only just press and stars, but for like your public lovers of film to kind of all get together and just have a good time watching movies. Yeah, but last two, I'll end with Next Goal Wins, the new Taika Waititi movie. Before that, I saw Gone Girl. Patricia Arquette directed a movie.
Damn, we probably should have titled this Next Goal Wins. No, I'm kidding. I didn't see it, so.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe stars Camilla Morrone. I believe that's how you say your name. Stars in it. It's about, Willem Dafoe is this eccentric author, right? Has his own little ranch out in the middle of nowhere. Drugs, parties, alcohols. She's a young writer that gets kind of sucked into this world. So it's a pretty neat exploration of just a tortured genius and someone new coming into this world and experiencing it and kind of having to put up with and slowly get sucked into his ways of debauchery, I guess. So I think
he's a good actor for that.
Oh no, he is terrific in this. If you love Willem Dafoe, you got to see this movie.
Oh yeah, then sign me up.
Yeah, and it is a very solid movie, I would say. I think at times it kind of, I can't really say, but there is a cameo in there that is quite wild. But
can you tell me off camera? Yeah. I'll cut it out. Who is it? Feels very appropriate. Is he playing?
He's his drug dealer.
Did you see those recent comments he made?
Yo. But it's like one of those movies I think has a pretty electric beginning, but kind of as you're more into it, it kind of loses its luster that it had in maybe the opening 30 minutes. That's
a shame.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of sustain that kind of environment for a whole almost 2 hours, but it's an hour and 40 minutes that kind of feels like it's 2 hours and 15.
Hate that.
But yeah, for a performance, for like a Willem Dafoe performance, Willem Dafoe fan, I think you should definitely check this out because he's just the man.
He is. Yeah, he says he loves acting like a creature on screen. And I think he perfectly described his acting style. I can't wait for Poor Things to see what he's cooking up in that. Although I hear Ruffalo's the supporting star.
And then we got the anticipated return of Taika Waititi, Next Goal Wins. It's hard to gauge, like especially with public screenings. It's always funny to see like these standing ovations and audience reactions and laughing and enjoyments. And
dude, the Reed's got a standing ovation, and it's immediately after my screening on Letterboxd, the reviews started pouring in, all negative.
Yeah, like everyone.
I was like, "Yo, y'all are fake."
If you were in this theater, like you would think it was the greatest achievement in film history.
Oh, with Taika there, of course, they're all gonna give him that.
Couldn't hear the next joke because everyone was laughing, and I was enjoying it too. I think it's a fun movie. It's definitely funny. But yeah, you would think I was ready to see 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, and everyone was kind of 3. Yeah. I said on Letter, like it's basically Taika Waititi turned up all the way. So if you like Taika Waititi, you're probably gonna really vibe with this movie and enjoy it. And if you hate him, you're gonna not really like this movie.
Well, do you think it has the power to turn some people off to him? Like
yes.
Maybe somebody who, like me.
Yeah, I think so. Because
loved Hunt for the Wilder People, loved What We Do in the Shadows, lukewarm on JoJo.
Same style, same vibe, but overdone in the comedic sense, and nowhere as near as wholesome, and nowhere as near as developed characters to create an actual substantive, complete story.
Because it looks fun.
It
I
is.
like the
You
idea
can
of
have fun
Michael
with- yeah.
Fassbender being like taking on the white savior trope. You know, how can we deconstruct this?
They play with that and they have some fun with it, but like the jokes are. It seems like he would rather get a good joke off than have so many depth and development within it for the narrative and story.
Oh, that's so
The
unfortunate
characters,
because
yeah.
Hunt for the Wilder People does it so well, you know, using the situations.
Oh, it's
for
perfectly.
humor.
The humor is perfectly placed. It doesn't come from inorganic place. Here it's just like, you know, like the funny Korg guys they have in Thor, and
Right.
he kind of has those characters in, you know, Hunt for the Wilder People, like these little bit roles that come in and add a different element and has that type of humor. It's basically that across the whole movie, across every character. So it is funny, but at some point you're kind of like, it's not a sitcom. You don't need X amount of jokes per minute. You know, getting separated at times. And I feel like for an hour and 40-minute, maybe even less than that, you expect it to go by fast, but this went by very fast, but in a way where you're like, oh, we're already starting like what's going to be the conclusion. That's it. Like that was all the buildup we have for this moment of resolution. So the payoff isn't really there because you're not really, it doesn't do enough to, I guess, invest you within the characters up until that point in their goal.
Yeah, I saw some reviews calling it lazy. Like it felt like it needed a couple of other rewrites and that maybe it could have been one of his better movies. Because people have been sort of lukewarm on it across the board. I haven't seen one review that's like, Taika's back.
Yeah.
You know, it's another great Taika
That's what
comedy.
I was waiting for. That's all I wanted for Taika, because I do think he's getting a little bit of unfair treatment.
Oh, yeah, no. I
on
think
the line, and I think
it's partly, you know, jealousy. And it's also hard to stay funny.
right. And
It just is.
Humor gets old, I guess.
Yeah.
And for Fassbender too, I'm like, oh, you have this, you have the killer. Like, is Fass back?
Of course, he finally, like, we've been begging him, just work with a good director. And the two directors he works with, two great ones, but everyone's saying, like, Next Goal Wins is okay. And the Hitman, they're like, oh, it's been, or the killer
Mm-hmm.
is being upstaged by Richard Linklater's Hitman.
Yeah.
So it's like, Fassbender just can't do the right thing.
So, yeah.
It's like, please, just put me in a good movie.
And he's
What the
good in this
fuck?
role. I think he's good in this type of role, and it's cool to see him.
What's his accent? Where's he from?
I think England.
Oh,
but-
really?
Yeah, I'm not good at these accents, man. Australia.
I like his
English,
regular...
South African. They always.
Well, he's got like a German-Irish thing going on, like a German accent, kind of. I just like his voice, so I
Yeah.
was curious. I was like, I hope they're letting him do his own voice.
But the story is interesting, especially if you're a soccer fan. You know, this team of losers that, you know, rally around this coach, and the coach, fish out of water, coming to a new land, new people, new culture, and kind of learning to embrace it. You know,
Wow, yeah. That's an interesting concept.
yeah, nothing haven't seen before, but yeah.
Well, that's what he does in the past. Well, even, you know, What We Do in the Shadows, a lot of people consider that to be his best because it is just such an original, fresh idea. This, you know, mockumentary of vampires. How do they live?
There's no like
But Hunt for the Wilder People,
so much
we've
heart.
seen like the
know?
old curmudgeon regain his humanity because of friendship or relationship with a younger person. We've
Yeah.
seen that before, and it was done really well.
There's so much heart to that movie, so
Yeah.
much to the characters here, not so much. I also like I said, if you're looking for a 90-minute fun comedy, I think it will work for a lot of people on that front. And it did work for me to an extent, but I guess I was expecting just a little more.
Yeah, I still say film Twitter turned on him after those pictures of him making out with Rita Ora and Tessa Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, handsome. Director's usually not handsome. Critically acclaimed, successful. And you're having threesomes on set? No, that's too many things, sir.
Well, I
Your
think-
movies stink now.
Yeah. And the turning on Jojo Rabbit I've seen.
Warranted.
You think?
My problem with Jojo Rabbit is just, it doesn't have enough bite to it. When I heard that, I remember I was telling everybody, I was like, yo, this movie's going to piss off so many people. It's going to be so nuts. This idea of a little kid with his imaginary friend is Hitler. But it just ends up being like, the Nazis were bad, and look, people were manipulated by them. There wasn't enough bite to it. You know, there needed to be something where you look like, remember that in Jojo Rabbit? Can you fucking believe? There's nothing that you look back on in Jojo Rabbit and say, can you fucking believe they made that joke? Can you fucking believe that scene? Like, damn, that was crazy. I'm not saying the whole movie had to be that. You're dipping your toe in. You need to die. Like, go ahead, silly man. Like, you want to be imaginary friend Hitler?
But I think many people you say that, but a lot of people are like,
yeah,
Hitler should never be. This situation should never be presented in that way.
Because a lot of people, that's the problem, is that a lot of people, it was mild enough for people to take it and be like, oh my God, that was so edgy. Can you believe? Like, they're talking about it like it's the movie I wanted when it wasn't that.
Right.
I think that's what bothers me. Like, a lot, it's mostly people like in my own life, they just love that movie. Like, it's such a great satire and so off color, but also emotional. And that the final inspirational quote, it's like, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Nothing, no feeling lasts. I think that's the quote. Applying that to the Holocaust, that's actually the one thing, but that was done earnestly. That's the one thing that's like, holy shit. Why the fuck would you put that there?
No, he ended Next Goal Wins with that too, which was weird.
The same quote?
Yeah. No, I'm joking.
No, the one joke I always think back on is Rebel Wilson sending those kids out to their death.
She was so good in that.
That's the last movie she's done, I think.
She's probably done others, but...
No, I really think that may have been her last performance. I think she's got like something coming out next year.
She's ready for a rebrand.
Let's see. Oh, she had 2 movies last year.
Bangers or...
All right, we'll probably look to wrap it up there. We've been going for a while. So that was fun. Tiff, just last thoughts on the actual festival. Like we said, the presentation's always great. Toronto, a wonderful city.
They just need to be more interested in American football.
Yeah, no, they don't give a fucking shit.
Mm-mm.
That was funny at the bar. They had like a badminton, which is fine. I love badminton, but little football. Yeah, Tiff, good job. I love these film festivals. So
they're a lot of fun. If you ever have a chance to check one out.
Yeah, even if you can just visit Toronto, maybe see a film or 2 a day. You don't have to see a bunch. Yeah, and that does it for this episode of the Nerd Soup podcast. We will be back next week with our continuation of the Game of Thrones Season 6 Revisited series. We're doing episodes 4 and 5. Big episodes. Daenerys burning down all the cows and Hodor saving the day, hold the door. So 2 of the best episodes of that season, and just even going over the audio, we both really liked those episodes. I was worried that we'd get too nitpicky, even when it came to Season 6, just knowing what is around the corner, but I thought it was a good review. Like I said, we both liked it, and I'll tell you what, I'm excited to continue the Revisited series, because even just editing that audio, it's like, I kind of miss Game of Thrones. Kind of miss this season.
It sucks for the delay of House of the Dragon, too, not to be able to get really back into that world, but...
Yeah, no, we reference House of the Dragon on the recording, and I was like, damn, I miss House of the Dragon, too. All right, yeah, we'll be back next week, so be on the lookout for that. That's probably going to be dropping either next Thursday or Friday, so if you want to watch along and then watch our review, you can do that. And, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Peace. Wow, that was probably our best review yet. Hey guys, Aaron the Nerd Soup Monkey here with a brief shameless plug before we end the video. Do you ever feel like you don't have an adequate amount of nerd soup in your life? Like you're going to bed hungry and yearning for the nonsensical yet entertaining nutrients our podcasts provide? Well, we've come up with the perfect solution. The Nerd Soup Fan Question Podcasts, exclusively available to our Patreon supporters. You can sign up now by visiting patreon.com/nerdsoup, and for the price of only $1 per month, you'll receive exclusive access to our weekly podcast, where we answer your questions that don't make it to the main show. And while you're there, you can check out the other rewards we offer to our patrons, like stickers, mugs, t-shirts, behind-the-scenes footage, and appearing in the credits at the end of our videos. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Roll the names of the nerds who make Nerd Soup possible. The reason why the crypto crash didn't send our lives spiraling down a black hole of no return. Alright, I'll stop talking so you can listen to this jazzy-ass music while checking if Bo spelt your name wrong in the credits.